Welcome to our deep dive into the world of aerospace innovation.
Aerospace innovation, that's right.
And today we're exploring the exciting fusion of artificial intelligence and aircraft design. We have an article here from DX Today blog.
Okay.
Taking flight with generative AI, the next frontier in aerospace innovation.
Wow.
Dated
Yeah.
December 3rd, 2024. This piece, it really lays out some fascinating possibilities. I'm talking AI designing aircraft, optimizing performance,
Yeah,
and even using simulations to make planes even safer.
it really does. It's really interesting how they're talking about that because just the amount of data that it can process to come up with these designs is incredible.
Yeah, it's really pushing the boundaries, right?
Yeah.
So for our listeners who may not be familiar with this specific type of AI, can you break down what generative AI is?
Sure. Generative AI is essentially a type of artificial intelligence that can create new content.
Okay.
So think of it as AI being an artist. But instead of paintbrushes and canvases, it uses algorithms and tons of data to create things.
So like those AI image generators we see that can create photorealistic pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Except in this case, we're talking about AI generating blueprints for aircraft components, even entire aircraft. And instead of being trained on images, these AI systems are fed huge data sets
Oh, wow.
on aerodynamics, material science, existing aircraft designs,
Wow.
even things like weather patterns, the data that we're collecting on air traffic, all that stuff.
So it's learning from all this data, and then it uses that knowledge to come up with totally new designs.
Yes, exactly. It's pretty amazing, actually.
Wow, that's really interesting. So the article focuses specifically on a type of generative AI called Generative Adversarial Networks, or GANs.
Yes.
Could you explain GANs in a bit more detail?
Yeah, so imagine you have two AI systems, right?
Okay.
And they're competing with each other. One is called the generator, and it creates designs based on what it's learned from all this data we've been talking about.
Okay.
And the other one is called the discriminator, and it judges the design that the generator came up with
Okay.
based on all the same data. It's essentially saying, does this look like a feasible aircraft design?
So it's like an AI design critic.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
And they go back and forth. The generator is trying to, improve to the point where it can fool the discriminator, and the discriminator is constantly pushing the generator to create more realistic, efficient designs. So it's through this back and forth that we end up with innovative solutions, designs that human engineers might never have thought of.
The article mentions that this process could lead to designs that were previously unimaginable.
Mhm.
Can you give us an idea of what that could actually look like?
Sure. Imagine AI discovering a wing design that reduces drag by 15%. I mean, that would
Okay.
translate into big fuel savings for airlines,
Wow.
lower ticket prices for passengers, and a smaller carbon footprint.
So it's finding these hidden efficiencies that we as humans have just not been able to spot.
Yeah, exactly. Humans are limited by our own experiences and the way we think. AI can just analyze huge amounts of data
Right.
and explore a much wider range of possibilities. So yeah, it can come up with things that we haven't even considered.
That's incredible. So the article also mentions using AI simulations
Yes.
to make aircraft safer. How does that work exactly?
Well, you can kind of think of it as a virtual wind tunnel and a flight simulator all rolled into one,
Okay.
powered by AI.
So instead of building the physical prototypes and testing them, we can just do it virtually.
Yes, exactly. Much faster and cheaper. The AI simulates how a design would perform in tons of different scenarios, routine flights,
Yeah.
extreme weather conditions,
Wow.
even system failures.
So it can essentially stress test a design
Yeah.
in every way imaginable before we even have to build it. Okay, so let's walk through a specific example. Let's say an aerospace company wants to design a new passenger aircraft with maximum fuel efficiency.
Okay.
How would they actually use this process to achieve that?
Well, they would start by feeding the AI all the data, existing aircraft designs, the principles of aerodynamics, fuel consumption rates, information about the routes that the aircraft will fly.
Okay.
And then from there, the AI would generate potentially hundreds or even thousands of designs,
Wow.
each with subtle variations, of course.
Okay.
And then the AI would simulate how each design would perform, measuring things like fuel consumption, stability, and structural integrity.
So it's basically trial and error, but at hyperspeed.
Yeah, you could put it that way. And it's all happening virtually, so the AI can explore so many more possibilities than we could if we were just using physical prototypes.
Okay, so you mentioned that the AI is fed data about the routes the aircrafts will fly. Why is that important?
Yeah, it's important because it allows us to really optimize the design. So, for example, the most fuel-efficient design for a plane flying, let's say, transatlantic routes might be different from the most efficient design for a plane making short hops between cities.
Makes sense.
So by considering the route length, the altitude, even the prevailing winds, the AI can really fine-tune that design for optimal performance in its operating environment.
So it's not just about designing a fuel-efficient plane in general. It's about designing the most fuel-efficient plane for that specific use case.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beauty of it.
So this is all incredibly impressive, but are there challenges and limitations to using AI in this way?
Well, yeah, of course. Any technology as powerful as this comes with its own set of challenges. One of the key hurdles is the complexity of developing and implementing these AI systems. It takes a high level of expertise, significant computing power, and tons of data.
So it's not as easy as just buying an off-the-shelf AI software.
No, not quite.
And letting it design planes.
You need a significant investment in research and development, as well as access to the right infrastructure and talent. So there are definitely some barriers to entry.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, it sounds like we've only scratched the surface of what AI can do in the aerospace industry. There's a lot more to explore.
Absolutely. There's much more to discuss.
So be sure to join us for part 2 of our deep dive into generative AI in aerospace, where we'll continue this fascinating conversation.
Yes, it'll be great.
Welcome back to our exploration of AI in the aerospace industry. It's really exciting to delve even deeper into this.
Yeah, it is. We've laid the groundwork. Now let's really kind of take off into the potential of generative AI here.
And taking off is the perfect analogy because this article hints at a future where AI is actually designing aircraft that are unlike anything we see today.
Right. It talks about AI pushing the boundaries of what we consider possible in aircraft design.
So instead of just making small improvements to existing designs, AI could actually come up with something completely revolutionary.
Yeah, you could imagine an aircraft designed for hypersonic flight, or one that can, transition seamlessly from air to space.
Wow. It makes you wonder if AI could solve some of those, those long-standing challenges in aviation, like supersonic flight without that sonic boom.
It's possible. I mean, AI could analyze, countless variables and come up with a design that minimizes those shockwaves.
Right. That's fascinating. And speaking of minimizing things, the article also mentions AI's potential to really revolutionize aircraft maintenance.
Yeah, this is huge. Imagine an AI system that's constantly monitoring the health of an aircraft. By analyzing sensor data, in real time.
So instead of relying on those scheduled maintenance checks, we could have AI predicting issues before they even come up.
Exactly. Like having an AI mechanic on board,
Wow.
Constantly monitoring things, alerting the crew to potential problems.
So that would not only improve safety, but also lead to cost savings for airlines.
Absolutely. And fewer delays for passengers.
Right. This all sounds incredibly futuristic, but are there companies out there that are actually working on these applications right now?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Airbus is already using AI to design components that are lighter and more efficient. And NASA is exploring AI for next-generation air traffic management systems.
So this isn't just theory, this is actually being implemented.
Right. And as the technology develops and it's adopted more widely, we can expect to see even more innovation.
The article also mentions the use of AI in pilot training.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, imagine a flight simulator that is not only incredibly realistic, but it's also personalized to each pilot's, strengths and weaknesses.
Wow.
So it could identify areas where a pilot needs more practice and then create specific scenarios, to help them.
That's amazing. And it makes sense considering how complex it is to fly these aircraft.
Yeah, it does. And, it opens up possibilities for training pilots for things that are tough to replicate in real life.
Right.
Like extreme weather or emergency landings.
It sounds like AI could eventually touch every single aspect of aviation.
It's definitely heading in that direction, yeah.
But what about the broader implications of relying so heavily on AI in aviation?
Right.
We talked about jobs in the previous part, but I'm curious about the effects on the industry overall.
Yeah, it's going to disrupt the existing ecosystem.
Okay.
Think about the aircraft certification process.
Yeah.
How do you certify an aircraft that's been designed by AI?
Right.
Especially if it has, unconventional elements that go against our current understanding of things.
Yeah, it seems like we need a whole new set of regulations to keep pace with that.
Yeah, new regulatory frameworks, safety protocols.
What about liability and insurance?
Yeah, that's a big one. If something happens to an AI-designed aircraft, who is responsible? Is it the airline? Is it the manufacturer? The software developer?
It gets complicated.
Yeah, it's tricky. And then there's the issue of trust.
Yeah.
Will people feel comfortable getting on a plane that was designed by a computer?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Public perception will be really important.
So it's going to be critical for the industry to really educate people
absolutely.
about how these systems work.
Yeah. Transparency is key. But even with all the advancements, the human factor will always be essential in aviation.
That's a good point. So no matter how sophisticated AI gets, we still need, skilled pilots, engineers, maintenance crews.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, we also have to be mindful of the potential downsides.
Yeah.
Like if we rely too much on AI for design, could that stifle human creativity?
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, we need to find the right balance. We want to leverage the power of AI, but still preserve the human element.
So it's not just about the technology, it's about how we use it. Well, this has been a really fascinating discussion. I feel like we've learned so much about the potential, but also the challenges that AI poses for the future of flight.
It's a future with lots of promise and some uncertainty.
For sure.
But it will definitely be exciting.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
Looking at generative AI's impact on the aerospace industry, it's been quite a journey. We've explored the potential of AI to change, really everything, how we design, how we build, and how we experience air travel.
It has been a fascinating exploration. We've covered a lot of ground, from AI designing those futuristic aircraft to personalizing the cabin environment. But, as we wrap up here, I think it's important to go back to something we've been talking about throughout this entire conversation.
Yeah, you're talking about the bigger picture implications of AI in aviation. Right. That challenges the questions it raises.
Exactly.
We've talked about jobs and the need for retraining, but I'm curious about, those ripple effects across the entire industry.
Yeah, well, it will definitely disrupt things. Think about the certification process. How do we certify an aircraft that's designed by AI, especially when the design might use, solutions that go against everything we know?
Yeah, it seems like we need totally new regulatory frameworks.
Absolutely.
And new safety protocols.
We'd need to rethink everything. And that's just one example. We also have to consider the whole issue of liability and insurance. If there's a problem with an AI-designed aircraft, who's at fault?
Right.
The airline, the manufacturer, the people who made the software.
Yeah, it gets really complicated. And what about, trust? Will passengers actually get on a plane that's been essentially designed by a computer?
That's a really important point. Public perception is going to be key here.
Okay.
The industry really needs to make sure people understand these systems, how they work, and all the safety measures in place.
Transparency is going to be crucial.
Yeah. But even with all of that, we have to remember that technology isn't everything. The human element is still the most important thing.
That's a good point. So no matter how sophisticated AI gets, we still need those skilled pilots, the engineers, the people keeping these planes running.
We do. And, we also need to be aware of those potential downsides. Like, if we rely too much on AI for design, is that going to limit human creativity?
It's an interesting thought.
In the long run, we want that balance. The power of AI, but also that ingenuity that comes from people.
Right. So it's not about just the technology itself. It's about how we choose to use it.
Exactly. We have to approach all of this with a sense of responsibility, making sure that AI in aviation is safe, ethical, and ultimately benefits everyone.
This has been a really incredible conversation. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface, but it's given us so much to think about. The potential, the challenges, and all those questions that AI brings up about the future of flight.
It's a future with a lot of potential and some uncertainty, but it's going to be an amazing journey.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into AI in aerospace. Thanks for joining us. We hope this has given you some food for thought. And, next time you're looking up at those planes, think about the amazing possibilities that technology is bringing to aviation.